Well, we all know that the Golden State Warriors are amongst the greatest teams of all time. This past year, they went 16-1 in the postseason, which is the greatest run ever as far as percentage-wise, winning percentage in the postseason of all time, supplanting the 2001 Lakers, who went 15-1. Of course, they have their team that won 73 regular season games, 2015-16. And the Warriors own the record for the best three-game season span as far as winning percentage from 2014 to 2017, besting the Bulls' run from 95 to 98. But just how good are the Warriors historically? Well, this is what Klay Thompson had to say about how good they are and how they compare to the Chicago Bulls. Quote, "Every time the Bulls came to town, that was the ticket of the year. Now it's when the Warriors come to town, that's the must-see game. And we don't take that for granted. That's such a cool position to be in. We rarely played in front of a crowd that's not sold out. That's so special. It's hard to really grasp that as a player. So I think it's close. I still think we're not on their level yet, but that's what we aspired to be of the 2000s. We aspire to be that dynasty that will be in the minds of NBA fans forever." Now, how do I rank them? Well, first of all, I wouldn't even put them past the Lakers dynasty yet of the 2000s. Probably past the Kobe Bryant dynasty, dominated dynasty of the late 2000s. But the early 2000s, they were able to do something that the Warriors weren't able to do, which is three-peat. Championship in 2000, 2001, and 2002. I still put that team over this Warriors team. I don't care about regular season wins. Yes, I think the last couple of years they only won 56 games or something like that. But number one, they had to deal with a lot of injuries, significant injuries. And I mean significant. Like Shaq missed something like 20 games or something like that in stretches. Key other players missed key games. And also the Western Conference was much more competitive back then. The NBA was a lot more competitive. So you weren't going to have a team that's going to win more than 65 ball games, generally speaking, back then. Also, talking about the Bulls. Okay, the Bulls won 6 championships in the 1990s. Golden State have won 2 this decade, but they lost 1. In fact, they blew a 3-1 deficit. There's no way in hell Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls would have blown a 3-1 deficit. No. It wouldn't have happened. Also, the Bulls dynasty could have been even greater had it not been for the 2 retirements of Michael Jordan during that decade. Michael Jordan retired in October 1993, missing the entire 93-94 season. Came back in March of 95 for an abbreviated run that season. And later on retired in January of 1999. I think that the Bulls would have won the title in 1994 had they stayed together. I think, for instance, the Bulls took the Knicks to 7 games in the semifinals that year. Despite not having Michael Jordan, they took the Knicks to 7 games. The Knicks played the Rockets to 7 games. And in my opinion, the Knicks were the better team. But Ewing and Starks just chose to choke it up at the very wrong time. Up until Game 7, Starks had been okay. Okay by his standards. But Starks chose to have the worst shooting game of his career at the worst possible time. 2 for 18 from the field, 0 for 11 for three-point range. Patrick Ewing, despite the fact that Olajuwon did play good defense against him, Ewing just inexplicably missed shots that he normally makes. And Ewing had games where he missed something like 20 shots in multiple games. He had a game where he shot something like 9 for 29, 8 for 29, 11 for 29, 4 for 17 or something like that. These were the type of performances that Ewing had during that finals. But despite that, they only lost the last game of that series by 6 games. And it took some clutch performances from Vernon Maxwell and Sam Cassell to seal the deal. Taking that into account, I think that the Bulls would have beaten that Rockets team in '94. I think primarily, people always talk about Michael, I think primarily the X factor in that series would have been Scottie Pippen. I don't see anybody on that Rockets team that's going to stop Scottie Pippen. And don't give me Robert Horry. Not a green-ass Robert Horry at that time. No. Nobody on that team was going to stop Robert Horry, Scottie Pippen, when he was in his prime. That was Scottie Pippen at his prime in 1994 and 1995. Now, 95, we wouldn't have gotten there because we didn't have Horace Grant anymore, and we would have been too soft in the rebound to even reach the NBA Finals. If we got to the NBA Finals, it would have been a miracle, and it would have taken every ounce of talent that Michael and Scottie had to drag us to the Finals. But I think we would have petered out. Now, in 99, if that 8-seeded Rockets team, with its lack of offense, could still steal a game against that Spurs team, I think the Bulls still had just enough to beat that team. So I think, in my opinion, the Bulls probably would have won 8 titles had Michael never retired. That's just my opinion. Which, of course, would have made them the second greatest dynasty of all time. And as far as the NBA is concerned. So, Golden State, they're a great team, but let's not kid ourselves. They don't rank amongst the greatest dynasties. They don't rank among the Bill Russell dynasties of the 50s and 60s, the George Mikan dynasties of the early 1950s, the Lakers dynasty of the 80s, even held the Bird, run of 3 titles and 5 finals appearances in the 80s. They don't stack up to that yet. The Lakers, with the three-peat in the early 2000s, don't shortchange these great teams quite yet, just to put the Warriors prematurely on the level that they haven't deserved yet. Now, if they win a title this year, which many people think they will, then you can start putting them a little bit ahead of other teams. But right now, they only have 2 titles. Right now, in my opinion, they're only right there where the bad boy Pistons are. Okay? They're only right there. Hell, the Pistons were only really 1 call or 2 away from being a three-peat themselves. So they're right there, in my opinion, where the Pistons are historically. That'd been a great matchup too. You talk about the irresistible force against going against the immovable object. The greatest offense supposedly against the greatest defense supposedly. What a series! But tell me what you guys think.